Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 183.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I am glad that you are here today. Let me tell you why I'm glad. I'm glad because we're going to talk about one of those necessary things that you can't stand, but must absolutely do. And at the end of the day, if you are brave enough to figure it out, the entire world, that's right, I'm not overstating this, the entire world opens up to you if you are willing to develop the courage and make it happen. What are we talking about today? Yeah, you probably figured it out. It's sales. No, more specifically though, we're going to talk a lot about prospecting, that activity that leads to sales that many individuals just don't want to do. And I can completely understand. You've got the $10,000 or the 10,000 pound phone sitting on your desk. You just don't want to make that call. You were afraid to hear no. There are so many things that we're going to be able to talk about today with today's guest expert. It's going to be awesome. All right. So who are we talking to today? Today we're talking to Tammy Stanley. You're going to love it. Let me just put it this way. Let me tell you why. Because see, she's going to remove an excuse for most of you. You've said to yourself, I don't have time. I'm busy. I have kids. And I've told you, I've got 4 kids, but you think I'm somehow special. Well, let me tell you, Tammy also has 4 children. But that's just the beginning. What if you had to move to a new city in a new state, knew nobody, but yet you still had to find time to do prospecting? Would you do it? Well, not only did she do that, she managed to build a multi-million-dollar organization at the same time. So I'm going to say she knows what she's doing. In fact, she now directs what she calls the Sales Refinery. It's a sales training firm that transforms the bottom line in corporate and individual sales. And that's, at the end of the day, what we care about, that bottom line. It's the thing that's going to pay the groceries. It's going to send you to that next trip. So let's go ahead and dig in and find out a little bit about what Tammy has that she could share with us to be able to make those next steps happen. Help me welcome Tammy Stanley. Tammy, you there?
I am there. I'm here.
You're everywhere.
I am omnipresent.
There it is. Cool. Now, everyone listening probably knows the first question I'm going to ask you. You may not know, and that could cause you a little anxiety, but don't worry about it. It's okay. We'll treat you nicely. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs, and of course, you are one of them, a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Spider-Man, Hulk, whomever. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton in common. I mean, because entrepreneurs occasionally get dressed up. Sometimes they put on a mask. Occasionally they think about wearing a cape and flying around and saving people and their customers and prospects from their own mess and improving the quality of their life. So in that aspect, I think we're a lot like superheroes. We're also like superheroes because, before Spidey was super and for Wonder Woman had a whole lot of wonder, they were just normal people, right? And in some way, shape, or form. And something happened to them. There was a transformation process that they went through and then decided to offer their gifts to the world. They have what we call an origin story. So before you were, running a multi-million-dollar organization with 4 kids in tow, before the Sales Refinery, before you were able to actually help people get out of their own way so that they could begin to go out there and pick up the phone and make business happen, what we'd like to know is, who is Tammy Stanley?
Ah, okay. Well, not the Flash like I want to be.
Right? We always want it to happen quickly.
Yeah. or just like how much I could get done in a day if I were just the Flash.
I
Wow.
know, right? Dude, he would be, man, don't give me, that would be one of the superpowers right there. I'd be on it.
That's the one. When my kids ask me, what would you be? I'd be like, the Flash, hello. Get you kids to school.
Right, done. Right? How fast would your website get built then? Anyway, we got distracted.
So you're talking about like growing up and everything, or
Absolutely, because I strongly believe how you started out. There have been some entrepreneurs in the past, because of how they grew up, it informs their ability to actually build very large companies, etc. And we've seen that time and again. And we always look for those clues. And someone listening is probably exactly like you in some way, shape, or form, telling themselves right now that, hey, I can't do it. And they just need to know that, hey, look, I'm like Tammy. And if Tammy can do it, so can I.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll tell you, I think I know what the clue is. But when I start off, it may not sound like that at first. So well, I was born actually in New Mexico. So that I'm one of these rare people that's a native New Mexican.
Wow.
Send me green chili by 50-pound bags. I'll be thrilled. Literally. But what's interesting about when I was really young is we had a so-called tragedy in our family. I mean, my father was killed just before my third birthday, and my mom is really she was like a real product of the 50s at the time. Housewife, made homemade bread every day. I mean, played bridge. I mean, this. And then all of a sudden, can you imagine, you're 26 years old, she had 2 kids, and just boom, overnight, like one morning gets the military guys coming up to her front door, and she knows what's happening, faints, literally faints, okay? And she had to pick up her life. And which she did. It took her about a year, but she finally realized, okay, I gotta do something. I can't just pout the rest of my life, and I've got kids to raise. She realized that who had impressed her or made the biggest difference on her was a teacher. And sales trainers really are teachers, right, Jay?
Right.
So anyway, a teacher was the person who had the biggest impact on her life. And so she enrolled herself in college. She was a mother with 2 kids. And this is like, I was born in 1961. So this is not an easy thing to be going to school. And she had to get a part-time job and raise us kids. And I was definitely like a latchkey kid, but I always felt really well taken care of by my mom. I always she loved me. And she ended up getting a master's degree and becoming just a phenomenal school teacher. And she sent both my brother and me to private schools. And I got to go to a couple of amazing schools in Albuquerque, one that's actually pretty well known there called Albuquerque Academy. And we were on full scholarship. So I was going to school with all these very wealthy kids, but I wasn't wealthy at all. But I got amazing education, just amazing. And then I got to go to college, and I had this roommate who one day had just heard me complain about my teachers all the time, because I'd really been kind of spoiled. I'd had really good teachers at the academy. And she said, I think you'd really like my German teacher. No, I know you'd really like my German teacher. So I thought, well, what the heck? I always like Spanish. So we had this 1 month during this, at this particular school. It was called interim, and you do a whole semester in just 1 month.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and it was kind of like the party month of the year, because you just had this one class, so there was nothing else to do. Well, except that I took intensive German, so instead of it being 3 hours of class a day, it was 6 hours. But that's it. My German teacher, Dr. Barbara Pflanz, was one of the most amazing professors, teachers, mentors I ever had. And I learned so much that in that month, afterwards, a good friend and I went to San Francisco. And I heard these Germans in this bar that we were at the wharf. And I knew they were speaking German. So I went up and started talking to them. And when they asked me, wow, how long have you been studying German? This conversation was all in German. And I said, 4 I said, 4 weeks. And they laughed at me and they said, oh, you mean 4 years? I was then able to explain to them exactly how I had been taught, have a whole entire conversation with them. This is how phenomenal this teacher was, okay? I took several semesters with her, like 2 more semesters with her, and then she let me be an assistant in that the next time she had that class, that intensive German class. That's when I learned so much from her about how to teach and what to do. And then I went to Germany about a year later and lived in Germany. And I think that's where I got over a lot of the, that's called sales. I had to go to all these different places and try to get a job because I didn't have enough money to live there without working. And I spoke like a good 3-year-old. Well, you've had kids, 3-year-olds, they speak pretty well.
Right.
4-year-olds, they speak pretty well, but still I was 21 or so. So, still sounded kind of dumb. But I was persistent. I don't remember how many places I had to go to, but probably 30.
Oh, wow.
And then I got a job and I got $1 an hour to work like a slave, but I was grateful for it. And it got me further along. Like I started meeting people and then I got a better job and then I got a great job and, came back and got my degree in German studies. I ended up graduating from the University of New Mexico. And then I started my master's in German studies, but I got married and I had my first son, and I really made a bad choice in marriage, except that I had an amazing son. And then later I did divorce this man. He was very abusive. It's not something I'm proud to admit, but I got out of it and I'm proud of that. Yeah. And he was later killed. And I think a little bit before that, I met my current husband. I was married 27 years. And he's adopted our son, and we had 3 girls. And and so then we met in like Colorado, and then we moved up to Oregon. And that's when we moved to Oregon, that's when I got into I started a direct selling business out of my home. And I didn't know anybody.
I love it. Well, okay. See, here's the thing, and this is why I always ask that question, because there are so many stinking clues here to all the things. It's like when you were watching The Karate Kid, for those of you who remember that movie, Daniel's son wants to learn karate, and he's like, when do I do the flying kick? And he's like, paint the fence and wash the car or wax the car and whatnot. And you've got so many of those little things, throughout this entire story. But before I go too further, I just want to make sure that everybody knows bridge is what existed before Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo, and people used to play that. It's a card game. Now, some people, they probably have no idea, like, play bridge. How do you play? They could be thinking the wrong thing. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. But some of the clues that have informed you came from outside of you. I think so many times we as entrepreneurs trying to figure out, what am I going to do? You took the advice of a roommate who turned your complaint into a solution. Hey, you'll probably like this teacher, go try it. And you did. I don't know what inspired you to do that, but you did. And that was cool. But then you displayed some remarkable courage. Very few people that I know will go to a foreign country where they really don't speak the language, or as you say, as a 3 or a 4-year-old, and they just won't do that. But yet you did it, even though knowing you didn't have all the resources necessary to actually make it over there.
Oh, I definitely did not have the resources. but see, I did.
But you didn't let that stop you. You didn't let what you didn't have get in the way of, let's go have an adventure and an experience.
Yeah, that's important for a lot of the people that are listening today, because I know a lot of them are getting into investing in real estate. And they don't have the money. That's like the big thing. I don't have the money.
Yeah,
well, I didn't have the money either.
But it didn't matter. I mean, you practice literally what I often tell people is like, go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you'll see further. And you've been able to live that way, which is amazing because not enough people, I think, more of our genius would be revealed if we could do that. And then you do it again, having kids, moving to a complete new city, starting, so no one, and now you're working a business where you've got your job is pretty much. I mean, have you ever thought about the whole prospecting process? We grow up. Mom said, "Don't talk to strangers." As soon as you say, "Hey, I'm in business," the first thing you got to do is talk to strangers. It's like it's counterintuitive to so many things that we learn, but here you are doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome. I just think that's awesome. Okay, so how does one do that? So you're going into a new area, you're into a new industry. You've got all. How did you? Because I know I hear it all the time. Jay, you don't understand. I got kids, I got a job, I got a this, I got a that, and how am I supposed to make time to build my business?
Yeah, well, I think one thing I want to say is it's something that actually I got from listening to some of your podcasts, and that's that you say when you're starting something new, don't expect to look good. And this is just so brilliant because I think that's what we want. And I think that's what gets in the way. Like, I think it's almost an excuse that we say we don't have time because people say to me, "Hey, have you seen that commercial?"
Right.
So you don't have time, huh? Because you can watch a commercial. I mean, I don't own a television, okay? But the thing is, I still waste a lot of time. And, I'll sit there and mess around on a website or, I don't know, I'll daydream or whatever. Everybody has time. You really can't say you don't have time. And there's almost always people who waste a certain amount of time. And so we'll say that we don't have time, but I think a lot of it is that we don't want to go out there and not look good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an addiction is what I tend to call it. We're so addicted to looking good that if we don't, we lose, we lose whoever we think we are, and we won't take the risk. But and I can remember some of those beginning stages, like some of the, first times I tried to make a prospecting call, it didn't go well. Let's just put it that way. And if you can, Tammy, imagine this. Imagine you're out there prospecting. You're new. You're doing your best. It's already freaking you out. And you know what happens when you finally get somebody to talk to you, right? You throw up all over. And here I am telling him everything I think I know. And then he stops me, and I kid you not, these are the words he says. He's like, "Do you want to actually be successful at this?" Now, this is the person I am prospecting. He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I would like to." And then he says, "Say less to more people." I was like, "Thanks, sir. So you're not interested then?" It was like, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. But
what a nice guy, though, because he gave you a clue.
Yes, I've not. It's been, wow, it's probably been a decade. I haven't forgotten that, in any way, shape, or form. And you've taken that to the next level because you wrote a book, Carpe Phonem, which I love, by the way. How to seize the phone, take action, and call your prospects even when you lack the courage. What prompted you to do that?
Well, I was working with a personal coach, and I was telling her this journey. It's kind of funny because I didn't have trouble calling people when I first started my business, but then once I became successful, that's when call reluctance set in. Is that
what?
Yeah.
Okay, that you realize that that's like absolutely backwards.
I know.
Okay.
I got it. But it's just funny because it's like, I don't know, that's when I really faced it more than anything. Well, you know what I think it is? It's because I didn't need to make calls so much anymore. Like, I wasn't it's not like my livelihood totally depended on it anymore. So I was just driven like I had been in the past. Like when I lived in Germany, I wasn't going to eat if I didn't go out and prospect and get a job. And the same thing with, my kids weren't going to eat if I didn't go do it. Then once I had quite a bit of success, it was just, okay, we're, a matter of, did we need new furniture or not? No, we didn't. I don't know. I don't really understand it. But I did go through this period of time where I experienced call reluctance. And I was talking to my coach because I stumbled on something to where like, wow, I broke through it. Okay. And I'm sharing it with her. And she said, whoa, you know what? I just realized you're going to write a program called Sales Call Reluctance Reversed. And I said, oh, okay. And I thought, all right. I didn't argue with her. I just thought that's interesting. And then she was right. About a year later, I wrote this book, and I kept referring, seize the phone. And I thought, I'll have fun and say carpe phonum. So.
Yes, that's why I like it, because that phone feels so heavy, but yet it's so necessary, and we try to fill our day with everything but the necessary pick up the phone and talk to the person phone call. And I think I just think it's crazy, the things, the mental gymnastics we go through to avoid the one basic necessary activity.
Yeah. And you can learn a lot in a phone call because you have the voice, so you have the intonation. And it's interesting, Jay, I'm sure you know this, but you can feel resistance on the phone. I mean, you'll hear it in your prospect's voice. As soon as they start to resist what you're saying, it's really like you can feel it.
Yeah, it's funny how that is, but yet it's also, I think it's ironic at the same time, in that, with today's technology, everyone was like, well, can I just send them an email? Like, no, you can pick up the phone. That'll work better for you. So here's the question. Okay. What do you think causes this anxiety? So for the person listening who's probably shaking their head right now going, yeah, I know I could do this, but God, I got to talk to people. How do they get through that?
How do they get through that? Well, I think what gets in the way, and then I can talk about how they can get through it. I think what gets in the way, the first thing that gets in the way, or the biggest thing that gets in the way, is the voice inside their heads. That little voice.
No, I know nothing about what you talk about. Nothing at all. Never. Mm-mm.
When you're going to an important meeting, and then the voice tells you need to wear this. No, you should wear that. Don't wear this. I don't know. It's like some people call it a committee. Some people call it the false self. There's the little voice. In my book, I refer to it as the trouble thoughts, because that voice, I'm not talking about the still small voice. I'm talking about that chattering voice. Chatterbox, it just goes off like crazy. It's always got an opinion, and it's always talking you out of sales, making those sales calls, right?
It's so good at it too. It's well skilled.
You're very good at it. It's always telling you, don't call now because you're gonna interrupt them. Or don't call them. They just got to the office. They don't want to hear They don't want to hear from a salesperson right now. Right. Don't call now. It's right before lunch. Don't call now. It's right after lunch. I mean, it's insane. It will keep you going all day long. Right. And what happened is that I was being run by this little voice at that one period of time I told you where I was experiencing sales call reluctance. And I mean, I was running my business out of my home, and I had all 4 kids under my feet at the time. And so you can imagine I'd tell myself at night, I'm going to make all these calls tomorrow, and tomorrow would start, and I'd go in, and before I'd pick up that phone, he'd say, you know what, you could get 2 things done at once if you go put a load of laundry in the wash right now. And and you make those, then you'll get laundry done and you'll make sales calls. Oh man, do two things at once. I can't argue with this. I'm off there putting laundry in. I'm coming back to my office, but I go by way of the kitchen, and the little voice is saying, hey man, you ought to have a nice cookie today. You deserve it because you're going to make all those calls today. And, I get that cookie, and as soon as I eat that bite of cookie, it's like, dude, I thought you were going to start a diet today. This is no way to do it. I mean, I don't know. That was just keep me off the phone. And it wasn't until one night I'm like sitting on my bed and I am listening to this voice just rip me up about how I didn't make any of the calls that I had said I was going to make that day. And in that moment, Jay, I suddenly got it. I went, whoa, wait, that's the same voice. That's the same voice that talked me out of making calls all day. This is a total baloney voice.
Yeah.
Back when I had this realization, The Matrix wasn't a movie yet, but I don't know. You've seen The Matrix, haven't you?
More than once.
Okay. And hopefully I'm not going to put our listeners out into limbo here, but just to say there's this scene in The Matrix where the Matrix is this thing that all seems like the world is a certain way. And then it just crumbles and falls apart once the hero no longer believes it.
Right.
And that is really like living with the false self or living with those troubled thoughts. As soon as you see them or it, whatever you want to call it, as soon as you recognize that it's a liar, and it's really the father of the lie too.
Right.
So it's like the Matrix. As soon as you begin to see that, the whole thing begins to crumble.
Yeah.
And you just have to understand that whatever it tells you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your prospect just came in from lunch or came out of lunch, or it doesn't matter if it's a bad time to talk to your prospects. Besides, I'm going to teach you a tip that really helps that. Help overcome any resistance that they have to take your call. But it's really about just not listening to that voice.
Yeah. And it's funny that it's like at the beginning, that voice knows its job better than we know ours. So we go, hey, it sounded good to me at the time. And who knows, 3 hours goes by and definitely you're going to have that cookie because, hey, you're doing a load of laundry too. So that's good. You deserve it. I love it. And reshuffling
I already
the desk.
got a load of laundry in the wash. It's 9 a.m. I got laundry going. I'm going to make all those calls today. Come on. You bet I deserve a cookie.
No, you know what? You can get two. You can go for that second one because, you're just that good now. So, and those are the things, those are the interesting things. I mean, and I've seen the smoke screens, come up in various different ways. In fact, I often tell people that when we're afraid, any excuse will do, and we'll grab the ones usually that our friends will justify the easiest. And you chose not to do that. You chose to face it. So how does someone make that voice shut up and move forward anyway?
Okay, well, right now, maybe I'm that little voice in the back of your head. You know what? I've heard from some of you from time to time. You said, I was in a situation talking to a prospect, and I've heard Jay in the back of my head saying something like, move at the speed of instruction, or other phrases that you may have heard me say more than once, which I find very, very interesting and take as flattering, because if nothing else, that means you are out there making stuff happen. Well, as you guys know, it's Monday, so it's time to pick a winner. Again, you're wondering what you're winning today. Today, we're giving away yet another Cashflow board game. It's not always going to be a Cashflow board game, by the way, but it is right now. If you want to have an opportunity to win whatever it is we might be giving away, you have to go over to cashflowdiarypodcast.com. Again, that's cashflowdiarypodcast.com. It's going to take you straight to iTunes so that you can log in and leave a star rate and review the podcast. Star rate and review the podcast. Leave the written review, because that's the only way to have a username next to it and for me to let you know who you are that wins. Today's winner is John Ruman. That was the username, John, John, Ruman, Ruman. send us an email over to info@cashflowdiary.com and we will get your Cashflow board game out to you. Again, I thank you guys for listening. Glad that you are finding the information useful. Go out there and use it some more. So again, if you want to be entered, perpetually always entered to win, just go to cashflowdiarypodcast.com. Star rate and review the podcast, and that would be greatly appreciated. Hey, while you're there, why don't you share it with a friend? That would be good too. Anyway, let's get back to making that little voice in the back of your head be very, very quiet.
Oh, that's so cool. That's the part. You do what it tells you not to do. You got to do the opposite of what it's telling you to do. Just exactly the opposite. And you do it because you know that it's a liar. You know, here's the thing that my coach told me one day is that, I'm trying to remember it. I know it's in my book. But at any rate, it's this whole idea that I was thinking that I didn't want to call these prospects because I didn't want to deal with the risk of rejection or something like that, right?
Right.
But what she got me to see was that, no, the truth is you really do want to do that. And I went, wait, that's right. When you get to the ultimate truth, so the ultimate truth would be your still small voice, not that chattering voice in your head. And when you get to the still small voice, you know what you really do want.
Right.
And so what you really do want to do, like for me, I really did want to make a difference with people. And I knew just from experience in sales that was how I did it. You can't make a difference by not being in communication.
No, that would be tough.
I mean, that's what we're all about, is being in communication. You know, even for people that are spiritual, you know, how do you make a difference? You be in communication with God, right? It's like, it's whatever it is. It's like, it's all about communication. Doesn't matter if you're on a spiritual journey or you're just here in the world and, you know, trying to make a business go or whatever. To me, it's kind of all a spiritual journey, but it's all about communication.
Indeed. And even more so now with all the advent of social media and various other channels, there's so many ways to communicate to individuals. I guess, what would you say to the person or persons who are thinking to themselves, but Tammy, I'm not a born salesperson?
Well, you know, who is? I mean, we've had 4 kids. Did you ever have a kid pop out and go, now that kid's a born salesman? I can sure see that one is going to be a salesperson. No, that's the funny thing. People think that, and they assume, for instance, I think you're kind of the same, but we're social people. I've really never had much difficulty talking to strangers. Look, like I want to. If I go to a networking meeting, you think I want to go up and start talking to strangers? No, I don't. But I just go do it anyway, okay? Because I figure, I know they're going to just sit there like a wallflower, and then that'd really be uncomfortable for all of us to be sitting around like wallflowers. So, okay, I'll go do it, you know? And that's what outgoing people do, all right? But just because you're outgoing doesn't mean you're a salesperson. In fact, I've met some really outgoing people, and they aren't good salespeople. I was one myself, because a really great salesperson, it's a skill to become a great salesperson. You learn it like you learn music or anything else. You're going to have to, there's certain principles, I believe, about sales. And one of them, you know, you've got to get into the shoes of your prospect. You've got to listen.
Yeah.
You have to understand who your prospect is and really care. It can't be all about you and your agenda. You've got to come listen to your prospect from their agenda. So it's a skill. And I've met plenty of people that were more mild-mannered than me and much quieter, and they were phenomenal salespeople.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that one 100%. I just wanted to underscore the fact that I agree with you in that I believe that sales is a skill. Anyone, if you can learn to tie your shoe, you can learn to sell, no matter what it is. It's a necessary skill. Your business does not, I don't care how technically good you are at actually executing on whatever it is you're selling. If you don't get the opportunity to display that until you sell something.
Yeah. I always say, hey, when I was teaching German, I was a teaching assistant at the University of New Mexico. And when I was talking to people about taking German, and I was a salesperson, I was telling them why they should take German instead of French. Because, once you learn the alphabet, you could read it, for crying out loud. Don't you want to speak a language? I mean, that talk about sales. Who the heck needs to learn German? I don't.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. And for everyone listening in Germany, yes, we know we should learn German. We love your cars, though. Thank you very much. With that being the case, I know many times, because you said something. You said one of the necessary skills is, learning to listen, step into the prospect's world or shoes, etc. Then why do we get so hung up on picking up the phone and wondering, what do I say?
Well, a couple of things there. One is that whole thing I mentioned earlier that was in your podcast. We worry about looking good. We want to look good. And so we don't want to risk not looking good. And look, humans love to look good. They really, really love to look good, and they don't want to experience not looking good. But just like you said in that one podcast, Jay, I mean, if you're going to learn something, and sales is a skill, and certainly going out and learning how to become an investor and getting other people to invest and do these big deals, I mean, you are just not going to be good at this from the beginning because there's a lot to learn. So you're going to have to experience a little bit of pain, but the cool thing, so you're not going to look good for a while. So just accept it, okay? You're not. But the thing that's really cool about this is that you can learn the keys about this pretty quickly, a lot faster than you can learn to play an instrument. It's going to take you years to get good to playing the violin, or my husband's a cellist. It took him years and years to get great at the cello. But you can get really good at prospecting after actually just a few conversations if you're paying attention.
Yeah, but it's still the willingness, I guess, I think you kind of hit on it. It's that willingness to go through that pain, and there are times where I wish I could tell people, hey, if all you're going to have to do is experience pain 100 times, go experience it 100 times, and after on the 101st, you're going to be an absolute expert and perfect. I wish I could tell them that and be accurate, because that way then it would be like, look, did you do your 100 in a day, or did you do your 100 over 10 years? Either way it goes, it's going to take 100 to get done. So what is the best way to be able to carpe fonum? What I mean, because I know many of the people listening as new investors, one of the things I'm always harping on is like, look, guys, you got to build your database with people you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we make that happen? I got kids, I got this, I got that. What's the first step? Like, is this like a 10-step recovery program? How do we make that work?
No, I'm going to give at least a couple of suggestions. Okay, first off, the beautiful thing about conversations, and especially for prospecting, like prospecting conversations, this is not about like when I call my kids and we're going to have an hour-long conversation. This is not that. Prospecting you can do in a very short period of time. And that's actually one of the ways that I built my business up in Oregon, when here I had all these babies literally under my feet. I would play with my kids for about 15 minutes, give them that personal attention. And then, they're kind of like, they're okay being alone for about 10 minutes. And then I'd run off and go make some prospecting calls. And maybe I'd have to make a few calls, maybe, and, wouldn't get through and only get through to one person, or maybe I talked to one person and talked to him for 10 minutes, but I did it in little increments. And that's even how you can tackle any big project. You like a book, or come on, you ought to check out Jay Massey's website. If you think that this guy created all those reports and those videos and designed all this, and I know he had help in terms of designers and all that, but this is his material. So if you think he designed all of this in a day, you got to be crazy. And he did it in little increments, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 20 minutes here, an hour there. It's just what you can do. And I think one of the biggest problems that salespeople have, I know my sales force had this issue, and I was like, you all tell yourself that you're going to call all your customers this Saturday, and that would entail making 2 hours or 3 hours of phone calls. You are never going to do that. Stop with the nonsense. That sounds like, HE double toothpicks.
Right.
And it's the weekend. You are not going to do that. Stop lying to yourself. Tell yourself you're going to make 5 phone calls a day. Start off with something biteable, the whole how to eat an elephant, like a little bite at a time. So start off. If you really stink at this and you're not making any calls, don't tell yourself you're going to make 5 calls, because you aren't. You're a wuss. You're going to make 2 calls. So tell yourself you're going to make 2 calls today. Then if you're at work, okay, during that first break, you got a 15-minute break. They got to give it to you. You go and you make 1 call, and then you take the last 10 minutes for your coffee or whatever it is that you do to reward yourself. You don't go get your coffee first and say, after I have this cup of coffee, I'm going to make that call. No, you aren't, you liar. You're going to drink that coffee and you're going to get sidetracked by a conversation with somebody else deliberately, so you don't have to make the call. No, you make your calls first. And then at the end of the night, you've made your calls. You know what you can do before you go home? Because when you go home and you cross that threshold, holy heck breaks loose. You are not going to want to make those calls. And that little voice is going to be, you should be making your calls. You should be making your calls. You are going to not want to, just because you hate that little voice that's making you feel so guilty. Yeah, well, right on, because you shouldn't do stuff out of guilt. That sounds like a guilt. Sounds like guilt thing. You shouldn't do that, but come on. It's all demotivating. So you've got to learn how to motivate yourself. You do it by rewarding yourself for good behavior. At the end of the day, if you've made all your calls, you know what you do? You make 1 more.
I love it. I love it.
And then you feel like a hero. You walk across that threshold, you go in, you say hi to your kids, and you know what can really happen for you tonight? You can actually be with your family. You will be listening while they're talking to a little voice in your head, because you will have shut it up. And you can actually listen to your spouse when that person is talking to you about your day, instead of being in your thoughts about how you really need to go make this, or you should be doing that, or you shouldn't have done that. No, you'll get to be with people.
Yep. Oh, goodness. You crack me up, because I can see some people right now. They're shaking their head. They're totally like, yep. That's exactly what's going on. How did she know? Because, you got to squeeze the moments when you can and do that. I know when I first started, that's what I did with my lunch break. People thought I was nuts. In the past, that's what I did with lunch. I did not, I would go in the break room and I'd make phone calls. Then this was long time ago. That's because that's the time I had. I worked with what I had, and we began to prioritize in a different way. And I think in to some degree, what you're really saying is that we've got to develop the character habit of discipline, and we've got to really tell ourselves the truth not just try to make ourselves feel better.
Right. Besides, when you listen to that little voice, you don't end up feeling better.
Not at all. Not
You
at all.
never do. It always points you in the wrong direction.
Consistently. So if nothing else, we now know that little voice is exactly 180 degrees from where we should be.
Right. This way you can't listen to it. And whatever it tells you, that's your clue. Do the opposite. I don't know how much time we have left, but I was going to give a quick tip to make when they make these calls to make it easier.
Yeah, by all means. And because see, now that you said that, if I stopped right there, I'm going to get a whole bunch of hate email. So by all means, let's go for it.
Okay, cool. I just was thinking a lot of times when people make these calls and they reach out and then they can't get their prospects to take their calls. And what happens is that it's because they listen to things like, you got to be enthusiastic and blah, blah, blah. So they try being really enthusiastic when they pick up the phone. Okay. But there's this thing in sales called resistance, and prospects naturally resist salespeople. Like Jay, if we're standing, you and I are standing on opposite sides of a mud puddle, and somebody hands us a big rope, and we're standing there and we're holding this rope, and then I begin to pull on the rope. What are you going to do?
I'm not going in the mud, but I'm definitely going to pull.
Right? You're going to pull back. You're going to resist me. And if we were standing on the same side and I started to push you into the mud, what are you going to do?
Depending on my mood, I just may pull you in with me, but most likely I'm going to resist.
Some kind of resistance, right? You push back or whatever. Maybe I shouldn't have used that mud puddle there because I can see you pulling me in. And
yeah, it could happen.
A little shrimpoid so you could do it. But the point is, it's really just like the sales profession, like the sales. It's an analogy for the sales process. If I'm pushing you, it's going to be natural for you to resist me and push back. We even call salespeople like that, pushy salespeople. And if I'm trying to pull you over to my way of thinking, you're going to sort of just resist because, hello, I've got my own way of thinking. All right. So it's natural for prospects to resist. And this is just a great concept to have in the back of your mind when you're picking up the telephone. And so there's the resistance. It's always there. Okay. Well, when you pick up the phone and you're going to reach out to prospects, you need to come from your prospect's point of view, from their agenda, not your agenda, which would be, boy, I want to get an investment deal going, or I want to get a sale, or whatever it is. You're usually coming from your own agenda, which is natural. It's you and your thoughts. But before making calls, you got to step over into your prospects world. But what do salespeople usually say when they start their calls? They start by going, "Hi, Jay, it's Tammy Stanley. Did I catch you at a good time?" Why would it be a good time to talk to a salesperson?
Sorry, it's not.
No. And even if you're an investor that I've learned about and we haven't met or we don't know each other too well and I'm a little too enthusiastic, that's a lot like you pushing against your prospect. It's like too much enthusiasm, and they sense then that you're a salesperson and you're up to something. And so they say things like, "Well, I just walked into the office and I need to take care of something." Yeah, what do they need to take care of? Nothing.
Hanging up the phone.
Right. No, exactly. I'm just stepping into a meeting. No, they're not. It's like I'm right in the middle of a project. They're on Facebook. I mean, they're not.
Yes.
No, they are not busy. So if you start, what actually is going on is that when you start that way, you're not communicating to your prospects that you understand them. And I always feel like the most important rule of prospecting is that prospects don't buy because they understand you or your company or your services. They buy from you or they listen to you because you understand them.
Well said. I like it a lot. I don't like a bad salesperson. I like really good ones because they're fun. It doesn't feel like the sales process. And salespeople are treated horribly. But I like to be a person who sells stuff all day long because those are two completely different things.
Oh, that's so cool. I've even been telling people lately that people don't want to have sales conversations. They want to have real conversations.
Indeed. And I think it's up to us to some degree to actually draw people into that real conversation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask this. If someone at this moment, they've been listening, they're like, you know what, I really like what I'm picking up what Kathy's putting or Tammy's putting down here, and I want to be able to move this thing forward with her, and I like where she's coming from. How do they find out more about what you're up to?
Oh, you can just visit me on my website. I'm at tammystanley.com. And of course, I'm on Facebook, Tammy Stanley. It should be easy enough to find me there. I'm on Twitter. I'm the Tammy Stanley on Twitter.
Got it. Yes. So now we know the secret, though. If you call her and she says she's stepping into a meeting or finishing a project, she's actually on Facebook or Twitter. So just make sure that you remember that as you move forward. If let's say, for example, that someone listening is standing in front of the superhero outfit store right now. They're picking out, their outfit. They're not quite sure of the colors yet. They do think they want to wear some tights and probably a mask. Not sure about the cape. But yet they're still having that chattery voice, as you said, going in the back of their head, saying things like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't, am I really going to find enough customers? And all these types of things. What would you say to that person right now?
I think you got to just see yourself as the Incredible Hulk. And because here's why. Because as soon as you dare to do the opposite of what that little voice says, that is when you discover it's just a little weakling and that you are an Incredible Hulk, that you can create immeasurable value. Even if you don't make the sale, even if you don't, you are going to feel like such a winner because you did what you said you were going to do. There's nothing like getting to be your word.
That is very, very true. I agree with you 1,000%. So what I would like to say is I definitely appreciate you, sharing your wisdom, your journey, removing the excuse, I got kids and I don't have time. All of those things. Hopefully more people will now carpe phone them and make that happen for them. Thank you for taking the time to share with us today here at the Cashflow Diary.
You bet. Thank you, Jay. I had a great time with you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? It means you probably should, as she said, carpe phonem. Pick up the phone, make a call, get the book, understand at the end of the day, nothing happens until there's a sale and you're going to be the one to cause it. It's time to be at cause as opposed to letting all these things happen to you and success happen to somebody else. Remember, somebody's company is earning revenue today. It's not yours only because you haven't done enough prospecting. Guys, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.